Pacino called me one day and asked me to read a screenplay called Sea of Love, you know. Harold came in a little late into this. The previous director had left, and Harold was somebody whose work I had admired. He was a gritty director. I met with Harold, and I liked him, and I liked his ideas, and that's how it came about.
When I first read The Sea of Love, it was the kind of material that was close to home for me. I'm a New Yorker to begin with. I grew up there, and it's also a city I know. So it's very much a character in the movie. It's a city that's so intensely populated, and yet there can be such a loneliness, especially at the night. You get into New York, you walk the streets after 11, 12 when all the good burghers of the city are asleep, and it's still filled with people. But people who are walking around sometimes leading the most solitary lives. And all of that is woven through the story. New York's also got a pulse to it, an energy.
And the key to the film was in the casting. I thought that it was cast very well. I thought that we did a terrific job in casting this.
Frank Keller, he's really wired. The guy's a good cop, he's a decent guy, but he can't let go of this terrible failure of his, which is a hole in him, that failure in his life, which was his marriage.
Well, could I speak with my wife, please?
I think almost any actor is honored to be in a picture with an actor of the caliber of Pacino. I mean, he's the quintessential method actor, you might say. He becomes the character. And it's almost an uncanny ability that he has to enter into that role and become one with it.
Pacino is one of the great actors of our time. So whatever he brings a great artistry and a great intelligence to what he does. I mean, Al Pacino is just a great actor.
And that's what you feel when you see him there. And the best example I can use of it was when we're doing the last scene in the movie, the scene where he's chasing her down 57th Street, desperately trying to win her back. They're running down this street that's just crowded with people. It's such a New York thing. And all he's got on his mind is Helen, and all she's got on her mind is getting away from him, even though there are thousands of people on that street. And that's New York. And nobody's paying attention. They're all on their way someplace. Everybody's in a hurry to go somewhere. Well, when you're shooting on one of the busiest streets in New York, there's only so much control you have. I think we hired about 300-400 extras. But at a certain point, you've got to stop. It's just the cost becomes prohibitive. But that's a street with 1,000 people on it. And there we are coming down the street. I'm on a dolly. We're filming them, and we've got a wonderful take going. And all of a sudden, into the shot. I don't know where he came from, but there's the limit of your control. This guy walks right into the shot and bangs into Al. Gives him such a shot that he knocked Al back a few feet. And Al, without missing a beat, runs right back up to Helen without missing a word. Because that's what he was after. And it would be the same as if you were running after a girl you didn't want to lose. And somebody banged into you, you're just pushing past them.
I mean, he just made it part of the scene. I mean, when you work with Pacino, and I've worked with him many times, you're working with a great actor. And you're working with a very instinctive actor, an actor that reacts to that moment.
Most of the time, an actor's going to stop there. I was ready to cut. And it's the take we used in the movie. And for me, it was a perfect example of an actor who's so focused, so in the scene. When you see him on that screen, he's no longer Al Pacino. He's Frank Keller, a man who's sort of caught between hanging on to the bottle and going under. And into his life walks to the Ellen Barkin character, Helen.
Hell on wheels, huh? How quickly we forget.
She just was so right for the part. I mean, she is New York. She's got that wonderful face. It's beautiful, and yet it's very real. And she's got an inner toughness to her. And so you can believe her when you meet her coming in on a personal ad in the middle of the night. This is a woman who can take care of herself. And she's also a lady of the night. I don't mean literally, but clearly she's a night person. And there's a match between these two people that's deep. We feel it almost immediately in these two lonely people. And you can see it on film because the chemistry was so wonderful with them. They both had enormous regard for each other's talent, and so you had a wonderful chemistry between the two of them, which makes, I think, that's the heart of the film. And that's the heart of the excitement of the film, is that you have two people so well matched. Also, she's a marvelous actress. And, of course, sexy as hell. And so, God, you've got a great combination there.
Where the hell do you learn that?
I worked with John Goodman many years ago, and I had seen John work in theater. And I've been a fan of John Goodman's for many, many, many years. Way before anybody ever heard of John Goodman. And I thought he would be perfect for this. I also thought that there would be terrific chemistry between he and Pacino, and there was, and that's what made it work.
I can't believe we have to chase down that third guy.
John Goodman was really quite an unknown actor. I think of him as a serious dramatic actor.
What are you, a fucking cop?
Sometimes.
Certainly he has great comedic talents.
You have very tight skin.
Well, that's because I'm fat. Pushes it out like balloon rubber.
Marvelously graceful, you know, for a big man, unbelievably graceful on his feet. But he's just enormously talented, and once you're talented like that, it's like a great ball player. They're a natural. You can put them in the outfield, they can play first base, etc.
The casting lady was the one that suggested Michael Rooker to us. And then when we met Michael Rooker, he was just perfect.
I wanted a fresh face for the part. I had seen a film called Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. Very good, very strong, small film. And there was Michael Rooker. He had a size to him that I wanted. When he finally comes pouring through that door, Frank Keller's dealing with a bull elephant. Before it's over, a wounded bull elephant, even more dangerous. Somebody whose very physicality, combined with his rage, makes him absolutely terrifying. Look, this was a very difficult film to do. It was difficult because, first of all, it was so intense. It also had so many different shades to it, from everything from the comedic to the darkest moments to murder. Also an intense erotic relationship. It really covered the bases, so it was a big film. And it was also a very long shoot because we had a lot of night shooting, also always tough. Shooting on the streets of New York during the summertime. And I would say the toughest thing, it was a very physically demanding picture. We started off in Canada.
We shot most of the film in Toronto because it was much cheaper to do in Toronto. And there were a great deal of interiors that we did, and most of those were built in Toronto.
But I quickly realized that the only things we could shoot in Canada would be interiors, basically sets. There was no way I could shoot New York in Toronto. Being a New Yorker, there's no way I'd believe it. And so we brought most of the film to New York, and it was basically the hard work of shooting in the streets and the intensity, because it's a film in which there's intensity from the very beginning to the very end. There was never a moment to relax. Well, film noir basically means film of the night. It was a French expression in its literal translation, black film. They were films that had a very bleak outlook.
What's your name again?
Helen.
Look, there were people trapped in situations. They were quite urban in nature, and they really were a post-World War II phenomena. But they were stories which took place in which there was very, very intense emotional experience.
You know, it gets late sometimes. I feel like a big cat in a small cage.
Within that kind of light and shadow, there's almost a trademark photography for film noir. When I spoke to the cinematographer, Ronnie Taylor, we came to an understanding immediately that we wanted to do a film which was a film of light and shadow. It is a film that takes place in the shadows. And when you watch the film, you see his artistry in creating or telling the story through light and shadow. And then, of course, there's the music, and it's so important, especially in a thriller and in a love story, to sort of basically create the mood right from the opening credits, where you get that pulse of the city, that lonely sound of the saxophone, which is, and that voice it has.
Trevor Jones was brought in by Harold Becker.
I felt he had that feeling, and also he has done scores that have a kind of a percussive beat to them, a drive to them, which I wanted for this film. And you feel the combination of that melodic line, that sort of line, you've heard it, or echoes of it in other films. It reminds you of the city of New York. And he brought that kind of a poignancy and also that beat, that relentless beat. There is a murderer afoot here, and he's killing people. Of course, this is a film of subtext. What's interesting in this film, now of course the motive that drives it is search for a serial killer. Well, that was the plot line of the picture.
What it was about a person, was about a guy. And cops are no different than anybody else, you know. That's just the job that they do. And that's what made it work.
What really is interesting in this story to me are the lives of these people. And this, of course, produces the humor as well as everything else.
So there's a high degree of intelligence. That was scripted. That was the character that was on the page.
And so all of this here produces a certain kind of a vivacity in our story. And by that I mean we want the details to be right. That's terribly important to me, that we get the details right. That if we're going to have a cop, that when if he's a homicide cop and when he goes in and he sees a body there, how does he approach it? How does he handle it? I want that to be so right that another homicide cop, a real homicide cop, watching this film will say, yes, that's the way it's done. In pursuit of that, I'm always bringing in what I call technical experts, real cops who have worked in these situations. So when they work with the actors and they work with me, we get it right. Right down to the detail, right down to when you put on those gloves, and right down to the cars they drive, the clothes they wear. I mean, cops don't have a lot of money. You know, a homicide cop in New York, last I heard, base salary is like $50,000. It's not a hell of a lot of money for a man after working 10, 15 years on the police force. Every detail has to fit. I don't want anyone looking at this film and saying, well, what's Frank Keller doing with a gold Rolex? Well, he doesn't wear a gold Rolex. Einstein may have said it, God is in the details. If we get the details right, it builds up something that's very important to us, and that is the audience has confidence in us as storytellers, as filmmakers, and they believe the story. Nothing basically takes them out of the movie because they feel they're in good hands, honest hands.
Who the hell are you?
If I fall in love with the film, I make an assumption everyone else will. I'm not always right, but you know, it becomes, in a sense, your child. And when it opened to a very, very large audience.
It was a good movie. I was satisfied on a very personal level. I thought we made a very good film.
It sort of broke the records for that period. Not that that's the important thing, but I felt satisfied I had made a good film and it had been received as a good film.